Hello everyone and welcome to V8 Online's coverage of the Monday night V8 Supercar official series. Last night we had the V8 Supercars Online Premier Series take the 2.6 kilometers of Oran Park's tight and twisty Grand Prix layout. It was a doubleheader which provided more drama in the championship chase, but on this Monday night, a championship chase will come to an end and 12 weeks of fighting it out between some of Australia's best will be in the rearview mirror before Season 3 kicks off with all matter of changes and a brand new circuit to boot. Tonight in our V8 Online comms box, the three people bringing you the coverage, including myself, Bo Albert, is Zach Hanlon, and of course our trusty director Jay Kennedy, who, for a fun fact and also a rather terrifyingly fact, is the fact that he is the only one of the three of us in a sim racing team currently. Strange world we live in, Zach, but after your efforts last night in what was a phenomenal split to your race, how about a little insight into what it takes to hook up a lap around this circuit?
Oh mate, it is so difficult to hook up a lap around here, so much so that even for the pre-qualifying, my qualifying time was 8/10 off what my possible best time was. So hooking this place up is very difficult. The braking zone in turn 1 and 2, you got to be so late, so hard, and manage it. Make sure you don't lock up a front or a rear because you'll go careering off into turn number 2. And the rest of the track is just very technical. You just got to make sure that you hook up all of your lines and you get into a kind of rhythm, because as soon as some of the sections like turn 7 and 8, if you're out of that rhythm for even a moment, you can lose 3 to 4 tenths just off one corner, and it can really kill your momentum for the rest of the lap. So it's what the guys really need to be careful of around here, is just making sure they're not making any minor mistakes which might throw them outside of that rhythm, and they should make it to the end relatively unscathed. But as we've seen a lot throughout this iRacing V8 Supercars series, not many challenges come out unscathed at the end of it.
No, not at all, and qualifying is definitely a challenge in itself, and a lot of drivers have already put down their two best laps at the moment. One driver that hasn't is Cameron Dance, who was on his first lap after what was a brilliant effort in Split 2 last night, managed to get himself up so many positions from his grid slot. So if he can do a little bit better in qualifying, he said that was a weakness of his, if he can get a bit higher up the grid, maybe, just maybe, he can fight for a top 5 here tonight, Zach.
Yeah, Cameron looking a little bit slow on this lap. Looks like he might just be using the rest of this lap to maybe generate a little more temperature into those tires. It's pretty cool at 28 degrees, although these conditions are very similar to what Cameron would have been running in the Split 2 race yesterday, as he gets very, very close to the wall coming out of the final corner and on to begin his first or his second flying lap. A 105.007, his first lap will put him in 20th position. That's not fantastic, but it's definitely better than starting all the way back at the grid in position 32 there. So Cameron now coming into turn number 3, late and hard on the brakes. Try and take as close to that apex as you can for as long as you can. Really short run down here into turn number 4, a double apex right-hander. That's going to take you up and over the bridge, and we cross over just like at Suzuka into turn number 6. And this is that section I was talking about before, turn 7 and 8. If you don't make turn 7 here and you run wide for turn 8, you have to come really shallow through here. But Cameron's done a very nice job of that and coming in for a nice wide entry through turn number 9. Now just a little bit of a kink, a little bit of a zigzag in turn number 10 and 11. Very, very high speed. Very easy to lose the rear there. Cameron losing the rear just a tiny bit on. He comes into the braking zone, comes out, not much wheel spin, which is good as he comes out the final corner, and he goes over the line for a 105.124. So unfortunately for Cameron, not able to improve there. But we saw him do fairly well from around that position on the grid yesterday. So maybe Cameron can still find a few places in the race to come.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an option for him to make his way forward, but another driver that is going to have to make his way forward that we would normally expect to be at the top of the order or near enough is Jordan Ross, who has not got a time in and unfortunately has invalidated both his laps, as well as Ryan O'Sullivan, who actually is currently not in the server as well. So two drivers, if they do make it into the race, going to have a lot of work to do around this circuit. Wayne Burke finishes his last lap, gets himself up into P number 10. So nice improvement there for Wayne on his last lap. But that is going to be the last of our drivers. I believe Mario Vlasic actually just coming across the line, jumps himself up one position to 23rd, just gets ahead of Steve Jensen by a 1,000th of a second there. So good effort from Mario. But Zach, seeing as that might be the rest of our running, and Greg Sharp, the only car on track who was on his third lap, let's run through the grid, and it's going to be Dane Warren who's going to be kicking off tonight from pole position with a great lap, which is 2/10 clear of Jake Burton, who's going to be alongside him on the front row of the grid. Ethan Warren's going to be in P number 3 with Luke Harvey for company on the second row of the grid, with Sam Blacklock rounding out the top 5. Championship elect, it's going to be very hard for him to be beat tonight. Marlin Mcmullen, he's got the number 1 on his car. Will he have it by the end of the night? P number 6 for him. Kurt Stenberg in P number 7 with Brenton Hobson for company on row number 4 with Ross Rizzo and Wayne Burke, your top 10.
We've got Brett Loxton and Brian Borg going to take out row number 6 there. They're followed up by Corey Preston and Thomas Hinz. Those guys will definitely be looking for some better races this week. Scott Cisłowski will line up in 15th position alongside Daniel Williams in 16th. Matt Morris takes out 17th with Brady Myers in 18th position. Brady way down the grid as well from where we would expect him doing so well at Bathurst last week. Michael Taliancic in position number 20 with Cooper Webster rounding out the top 20. Cameron Dance in 21. Craig Jones is going to be in P22. Mario Vlasic starting out of the 23rd position. Steve Jansen in 24th. Jason Cossey taking out the final top 25 position. And the rest of our runners for tonight, Thomas McMillan, Dominic Savicki, David Kinmond, Alejandro Martin, Greg Sharp, Ryan O'Sullivan, who we don't believe will be joining proceedings tonight, and also Jordan Ross, who I don't believe as well will be starting either from the back of the grid. So 30-car grid for our race this evening, and a grid full of talent and a lot of familiar names here. So no doubt we'll be on for a absolutely spectacular race here at Oran Park this evening.
Yeah, I fully expect that. And it's going to be a chaotic run into turn number 1. We do have 31 cars on the grid. Jordan Ross has made his way onto the grid. Ryan O'Sullivan has not. So a disaster for Evolution Racing Team already, unfortunately. But now just waiting for a few of the last few drivers to ready themselves up on the grid and head themselves towards what is a very tricky turn number 1. A bit of a move already on the start there for Dane Warren. Not what you want to be doing, especially from pole position, but the lights are out now and it's a good start immediately away. So he's got a great jump, but there's still a question mark as to whether he jumped the start or not. But look at the battle for P number 3 already. I think that might be Sam Blacklock challenging for P number 3, going up the inside of Trans-Tasman Racing driver Luke Harvey. So a great jump there for Sam Blacklock, who slots into P number 3 behind. Will they all make it through?
Oh, no, they will not. There's a car around in turn number 2 there. A couple of other cars just going side by side as they come down into turn number 3. I think that was possibly Wayne Burke who got turned around and was in the middle of the infield there. So Wayne starting out of position number 10 now has a massive job to do. Also notice, Bo, that Ethan Warren got a...
We do have an ASM car on the wall. I think that might have been Thomas McMillan, unfortunately, and he has found himself in the tie wall, and that's actually with big damage. There was a lot of carnage happening into that turn number 4, and unfortunately it did eventually get the better of him. Of course, there was contact with a few drivers, one of which I think might have been Cam Dance and Brady Myers as well. So not a great start for Brady Myers on his TTL debut, but Thomas McMillan definitely getting the worst of that. Big damage will continue on track, but nonetheless a long way back, and there's still fighting happening further up the field with Matt Morris now going side by side with Daniel Williams. Almost contact in a straight line as they play chicken down this front straight. Who's going to be the last? Late breakers once again, almost contact, but eventually Morris gets in behind Williams very squirrely under the brakes. And Zach, this turn number 1 and 2 is so hard when you're unsighted behind another car.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I nearly got my nose chopped off last night in the split 2 race, just being unsighted and coming in a little bit too hot. But especially when you've got a big train of cars in front of you, it is very, very difficult. I also just was saying before, Bo, Ethan Warren got an awful start. He bogged down at the beginning of the race, dropped 3 positions already. He's sitting down in position number 6 as it stands so far. But there are a lot of cars right now very close to each other. Matt Morris still hounding the back of Daniel Williams there. And further up the field, Corey Preston looking very, very keen on getting by Ross Rizzo, who seems to be just struggling a little bit behind Brett Loxton as well.
Yeah, Ross Rizzo, not a driver we normally see in these officials. Normally just likes to stick to Scops and, of course, his Oceanic Sprint Championship, which will be live on V8 Online this Wednesday. It's going to be a special finale, but for Ross Rizzo, his focus right now is trying to hold on to the back of Brett Loxton, and at the moment, not quite looking like that might be happening, as Loxton has a lot of pace, as we've seen so many times in this series. And, of course, Ross has Corey Preston behind as well, who did not take part in the Scops round last night, unfortunately. So he's getting his Oran Park fix here in the official at the moment. But out front, it is Dane Warren, who is trying to make a run at the moment. Half a second lead over Jake Burton, who is definitely going with him at this point. It's not a clear cut at all for the All-Star Motorsports driver. Just behind is Sam Blacklock, who's beginning to drop off, but he is pulling away from Luke Harvey, and that's where our train really begins. And Zach, in P number 5 is Marlin Mcmullen, who looks like he might be able to wrap the championship up. So what do you think will be happening through his mind right now? Do you think he'll be playing it a bit more aggressive than he might have been in previous rounds, or is it still maximize points?
Well, I mean, you know, he doesn't really have anything to prove at this point. I don't think he's won a couple of races this season. He's put in fantastic performances, and all he really needs to do is bring the car home. I think the only real scenario that he can't win this championship is if Kurt Stenberg, who's currently 2 positions behind him, manages to get to the very front of the field. And I think even then, we might need a little bit of help. So I think that Marlin's pretty much got this one in the bag, but I'm sure that he'll just probably be using this race as a good reflection of the season that he's had, and just doing what he's always been doing all season, which is keeping it relatively clean, bagging as many points as he can get, and just being out there and getting a bit of telly time for his sponsors, I suppose. So, but he really has, you know, he's been trying for a long time to get one of these seasons under his belt, and he's been denied that so many times by many other drivers, including Dane Warren, I believe, the last couple of seasons. So to see him finally be able to come through and to have a really good season under his belt is really fantastic to see. And I'm sure that he'll probably just be sitting celebrating in the last few laps of this race and probably just taking it a little easy.
Absolutely, and strategy will be a talking point in this race, but strategy is not going to be happening for Cooper Webster, who has just escaped to the pit lane. So something there happened to Cooper Webster. There's a little bit of damage to that front left quarter panel, but not quite going to see what's going to happen there for him, unfortunately. But we will look at Brady Myers, because he's under attack and he's about to get turned around at turn number 3. Gets a massive hip check by the driver, Mario Vlasic. So Brady Myers' TTL debut not going the way you wanted, as up the inside is the CMR car of Craig Jones, still side by side, close quarters, Falcon versus Falcon, inside for Craig Jones. Myers trying to hold around the outside, so hard to do, but it can be done if you're brave enough, and Myers going to try his luck around the outside, contact into the grass and through, somehow does not lose any more positions. Lucky to still have the car, actually still has the inside, now going to go side by side through the dog leg. So hard to do this, side by side, but they're going to try it anyway. Craig Jones across the grass, has to be careful not to get a slow down, but look at the checkup it's got behind, as that's Daniel Williams coming under attack from Steve Jansen. This is a battle pack and a half. They're going to go side by side down the front straight. Look at them all go, Zach. It's side by side down the front straight.
Yeah, I know, and now Wayne Burke's having a little bit of a look up the inside of Daniel Williams, but he's going to have to back out of it just as the last second there and try and go for another move on the brakes. And Brady Myers has gone around nearly. He nearly lost at the back of that pack, but all that hard work that he's done to get past Craig Jones is almost about to become undone. He does have the line coming into the next corner as we've got more cars going side by side. Steve Jansen now having a move put in on him by Wayne Burke, and Wayne is going to make that one work unless Steve has a bit of a look around the outside, but I don't think he's going to be able to claim that one. So Wayne Burke moves through, and Brady Myers actually managing to hold on to that position from Craig Jones as well. And now, Jordan Ross has gone for a very, very late move on, who's that? Daniel Williams, Steve Jansen, pardon me. And Daniel Williams has been caught up in that as well. So Jordan Ross just getting a little bit impatient there with everything getting so hot and heavy. And he unfortunately makes contact and causes a bit of a kerfuffle further down in the pack there. So a couple of drivers now have to make a recovery. That's going to really help the likes of Brady Myers, who was battling before. He's now got a little bit of room. Oh no, he doesn't actually. He's still got Craig Jones right up behind him, so he's going to have to still protect a little bit. But now that's opened up the door a little bit for Cameron Dance, who's come through there, and he's going to have hopefully a little bit of breathing room to catch up to the back of that train, starting with Brady Myers and ending with Wayne Burke there.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of changes of position in a very short time, and that's just how close and compact Oran Park really can be. Some of our biggest movers and shakers include Jordan Ross, who we did see get involved in that incident, currently finds himself up plus 10 spots on the grid, so that's a great start for him despite the contact, unfortunately. Mario Vlasic finds himself plus 8 positions as well. And Greg Sharp finds himself +5, but it is going to be a whole lot less now as he's losing positions quite rapidly. What has happened? Braking on the grass, never a good idea. Sideways, lucky not to spin the car, and loses a bunch of spots. So easy to do, but unlucky for Greg Sharp. Was in a very good spot, but we will now turn our attention back to Luke Harvey, who is currently trying to make a bit of a run away from Marlin Mcmullen, and there's a big train beginning to form. Of course, we did see Luke Harvey have a bit of a slow start compared to his teammate, who is just ahead of him now. And Luke not quite having the race pace at the moment, which is quite surprising. A driver we often see very, very quick. Not the best qualifier sometimes, but in the race, often able to turn it up 1 or 2 notches and really find some pace, but not quite happening at the moment. Now going to head over the Dogleg Section, and Mcmullen is just there, close enough to keep Harvey thinking about him, and not letting him have too much breathing room. But this is a very large train, including Ethan Warren, Kurt Stenberg, Brett Loxton, Ross Rizzo, Preston, Hobbs and Sislowski as well. So a big train falling all the way to P number 12. One mistake for Luke Harvey in that position number 4, and he's going to have a long way to fall, Zach.
Yeah, that's very true. As we have seen, though, throughout following Luke Harvey a lot, just from personal experience, I've usually found that he hasn't got the best pace at the beginning of the stint, but in the second half of that stint, he can usually make the car work a little better compared to, compared to the relative speed of his optimal pace is better towards the end of his stint than other people. So we might just see him start as we come into the second half or the second phase of this stint. We may see him just start to pull away a little bit from the likes of Marlin Mcmullen. And we'll probably expect that these guys are running, I think that most people would have taken 44 litres at the beginning of this race, and we use about 2.2 litres a lap. So we'd be expecting cars to go no longer than 20 laps here, maybe 21 if they're really, really pushing it. But I think we'll see a lot of cars coming in around lap 17, 18, 19 to get the undercut on those tyres and still be able to make it to the end. So maybe now that Luke's about halfway through, he'll just start pushing a little more and start working that gap back to his or up to his teammate down a little bit. But Marlin not letting go much at the moment, and neither is the train behind.
Jordan Ross just went for a very, very big dive there on the driver of Steve Jansen. Jordan Ross trying to make his way through the field, of course, had a disastrous qualifying, both laps not counting, and a massively late move into that last corner. Got the job done, but a little bit of contact there, but no harm done. So we'll get a replay up on screen for you now. That was quite the dive from Jordan Ross, but nonetheless pulls it up and will continue on his way. But Brady Mize in a bit of conflict at the moment, side by side with the driver of Brian Borg as they head up the hill. Close quarters racing once again for Brady Mize, not having an easy time of it in his new colours. Of course, signing with TTL, leaving from Progression Racing Australia. So a big move for Brady Mize, but unfortunately the only move he's doing right now is going backwards, a bit of a wiggle as well. Not quite comfortable at the moment. That could be with a TTL setup. It could be very different to what he's used to running. And at the moment, he is now coming under a bit of pressure from Wayne Burke. So Brady not entirely comfortable. Of course, we often see him in the Holden, now in the Ford. Perhaps that hood scoop that the Ford does have, just getting in his way just a little bit, Zach.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I genuinely felt last night like the Holdens had a little bit more horse down the straights, but Brady's definitely not feeling like he's lacking horses as he now goes down the inside of Brian Borg. A little bit of a rub on the exit of the corner there, but that's absolutely fine. Brady's been toughing it out around the outside a fair few of these corners. Can he do it again round the outside of Brian Borg? Not this time. He's going to have to go long again. Will he stay there? And now Wayne Burke's going to have a bit of a look and try and go down the inside of both of them. Not quite going to work. He's going to have to tug back in. Brady's had some contact there up on two wheels. He's out of the groove. He's hitting the cones, and he's lost a couple of positions there, lost at least 3. So very unfortunate. Now Cameron Dance, Craig Jones, and Wayne Burke are all looking and sniffing and want a piece of Brian Borg up ahead. Wayne Burke searching for grip and searching for pace around this track, not able to find any as he's coming through the Kings of 10 and 11 there. Have to find to make somewhere else work. But yeah, Brady, I mean, he was running that outside line a lot throughout this race, and it is very risky to be running around there. So, I mean, if you run the risk high enough for long enough, it's bound to come back to you eventually. So unfortunately for Brady there, but he can possibly work it back. Not far back off the pack of these guys. So as Cameron Dance goes down the inside, of Craig Jones, not quite getting in there. Maybe has the inside line for the next corner, goes late on the brakes to get himself up into position, and he's going to have some nice traction coming down the inside of turn number 5 there as they come across the bridge. He forces his way up the inside. Craig Jones has to bail out, and the position goes to Cameron Dance.
Beautiful move from Cameron Dance, but we will turn our attention back to Luke Harvey, who has still got one heck of a train happening behind him. He has lost one driver on the back of the train, though. That is the driver Brenton Hobson, who has fallen a bit behind the driver of Corey Preston. So the train a little bit smaller, only down to P number 10, but still highly contested at the moment. And these drivers trying to get an advantage over one another. And you can see that Marlin Mcmullen just looks a little bit stronger in the first half of the lap, very late on the brakes into turn number 3. And Harvey just getting caught a little bit, but at the same time, Harvey is actually matching the times of teammate Sam Blacklock just in front, and he's not escaping, so we will wait and see. But I think we have issues for Brian Borg. Indeed, there are issues for Brian Borg. The issues are he is a long way off at turn number 1. It wasn't even turn number 2, sorry, it was turn number 1. So the actual first left-hander completely overshot the corner, unfortunately for him, and a long way off making sandcastle. So we'll get a CPR replay of that. But unfortunately for Brian Borg, that's a lot of positions lost. Started the lap in P number 16, now finds himself in P number 20, so a massive loss there. But once again, Luke Harvey under a lot of pressure, and Mcmullen now becoming under even more pressure from the driver of Ethan Warren, so close behind.
Yeah, that we haven't been paying much attention to these guys up the front, with the exception of Luke, but Dane Warren's actually done a fantastic job. He's got a massive lead. Jake Burton's also got a fairly sizable lead back to back to Harvey, pardon me, and McMullen now under a massive amount of pressure from Ethan Warren, who's really been up behind the bumper of McMullen there for quite a few laps, and he has been applying a lot of pressure, but they just can't really seem to find that overlap on each other just yet. It's hard to say if they're all just being a bit tentative and following in procession, or if any of these guys really want to make a move. We are only about 3 to 4 laps away from the pit window opening, so maybe these guys are taking that into consideration for the next couple of laps. But you're right in saying that these guys are not letting each other go, and Luke Harvey doing a good job to match the lap times of his teammate up ahead of him.
Yeah, a lot of drivers are thinking of pit stops, one of which was Brady Myers, who has already dived into the pits, perhaps going for a bit of an opposite strategy. Comes out now right behind the driver of Jake Burton, so he's going to slot right into the front runner so he can watch their pace and try and manage that. So it could be an advantage for Brady Myers. We'll see how he slots in. It's going to be a very nice undercut for him, but fuel is going to be the talking point. You said if you're fuel saving, you can make it 21 laps. He has 22 laps to bring it to the checkered flag. So we'll keep an eye on Brady Myers, but at the moment, Luke Harvey is the one to watch, because Marlin Mcmullen continues on the back bumper of Luke Harvey's number 6 machine, sorry. And this is a very interesting fight, because like you say, pit stops are coming up, so McMullen could be saving fuel, or he could try and get the jump now and try and extend his advantage in the pit lane. So we'll wait and see what happens. These top 3 in this pack have sort of broken away just a tiny little bit ahead of Kurt Stenberg, which is so critical before the pit stop phase as they go through the dogleg. Ethan Warren losing a bit of time now to the 2 in front. So this pack just ebbing and flowing a little bit. No one quite having the pace from corner to the corner. No takers this time around. So these guys, with the pace they're running, they are not able to fuel save enough to make it 21 laps to the checkered flag. So they're all going to make their long stint now, and then they go for the shorter stint at the second stint.
Yeah, and it's actually surprising to see the amount of drop-off on the lap times with the tyres. From my own running last night, I wasn't expecting the times to be so dramatically off pace compared to the fastest laps that these guys have set. They're now running around about 1.2 to 1.3 seconds a lap slower than their fastest laps of this race so far, which is fairly dramatic, especially on such a small, this lap only lasts about 65, 66 seconds. So to be losing that amount of margin around this lap with those tyres is fairly dramatic. And I think that Brady Myers is going to really do very well out of this, because if he can get back into that zone of doing high 104s, he'll be able to make a bunch of positions. And that's one of those things that these guys have to consider now as Harvey just dives into the pits. So I think that's a very good idea from him. Jake Burton has also come into the pits. and will be dropping off the jacks in not too long a time. But I think, yeah, we'll start seeing a couple of guys come in, but I think very smart move there from Luke in early and be one of the first people to jump.
Absolutely, the undercut is so crucial, and so much track position can be gained, and Jake Burton was the first to do that, but Luke Harvey, in that battle that he was having, this is going to be very crucial, but also where he does rejoin. We can see so many times in the Scops race last night, the traffic was a defining factor, and actually seeing a driver in the background there having a bit of a nightmare coming into the pit lane, and unfortunately it looks like he has retired. So I think that might have been Jordan Ross of all people. So this pit lane is a tricky one, and looks like he has just retired the car, unfortunately, and done it in a spectacular way, so we won't focus on that too much. But what we will focus on is race leader Dane Warren dives into the pits, and Jake Burton has a one-lap undercut. Of course, he has 2 seconds to find, which might be a tough ask, but maybe if he can get himself just a little bit closer, perhaps he can do something. One driver, oh no, they're all coming into the pit lane. Sorry, I thought that was one driver trying to make it onto another lap, but nope, they're going to come in now. And we'll wait and see. But one driver that has stayed out, Zach, we're going back to our favorite guessing game.
The easiest game in V8's online broadcasting history. Where is Michael Taliancic? He is still plunking around in what I can see is position number 8, but I'm sure that he's higher than that because he would be in P1 because he's pretty much the only car not to have pitted. So we'll see how many more laps he decides to go, but going back to the pit lane as our leaders are starting to come out. And
yeah,
Jake
Burton!
Oh, they've gone around! Oh my goodness! Jake Burton has made contact with Dane Warren there and he's forced him off the track as they've gone to rejoin. And I mean, that's kind of fair enough that he said, I'm not going to let you do that. But very hot into turn number 1 and 2 from Jake Burton, and almost a massive controversy in this race. That could still open the door up for, well, actually it can't now, but yeah, that was almost a total disaster for the leaders there. Very skilled from both drivers to manage to keep it on the tarmac there.
Absolutely, but what was the issue for All-Star Motorsports? Dane Warren had a 2-second advantage, and the undercut would not have done that, and the pit stop was 1.3 seconds slower for Dane Warren. So I love the guys at All-Star Motorsports, but we saw it in the Scops race as well. A bit of a strategy error cost them so badly, and almost getting to the back there of, that's Alejandro Martin as he dives into the pit lane. Dane Warren and All-Star Motorsports, once again, a slow pit stop, almost costing them so much more. Jake Burton, understandably, had the sight of the race lead. He knows the pace of Dane Warren, but he had to go for it. But more importantly, what is happening to Marlin Mcmullen?
That is a great question. He is still
He's out of the car
in the pit lane.
He's not in the car.
He's got a little bit of damage to the car. In fact, he's got big damage to the car. That left-hand front on his... I'll go back and see what's happened, Bo, but the left-hand front quarter of Marlin Mcmullen's car is absolutely crunched. So, let's see if something...
Oh, he's been hit into the pit lane. Ethan Warren ran into the back of him into the pit lane.
Yes, and then he crunched the wall, that other retaining wall that kind of sits there just behind the Armco. So, wow. So, Marlin Mcmullen taken out, coming into the pits, and, well, that sure is a very sad way to win a championship, but, I mean, it's not 100%, I mean, it's pretty much 100% confirmed. We're not 100%, but 99.95%, so not a nice way to win a championship for Marlin J. Mcmullen, but he has done everything else that he is required to do in order to win that, hopefully, and we'll get back to you about that later on. But in the meantime, looking back towards the front, and Jake Burton still lapping relatively within the limits of Dane Warren, not quite there, just dropped off a little bit after that little tangle that they had in turn 1 and 2. So that'll maybe brew towards the end of the race. Corey Preston's been doing a good job sitting up in position number 10. He's up 3 positions and having a much better race than he has previously the last couple of rounds, so good to see that. But yeah, everyone just a little bit more spread out after those pit cycles there. Wayne Burke just having a bit of a look on the back of Brady Myers as well as they're coming through turn 7 and 8 now, and I think that Wayne has definitely got some speed in that car, and he's looking for a way past very quickly.
He is, and he's pushed him pretty hard, isn't he? Wayne Burke going so quick over the dogleg. Is the opportunity open into the final corner? You bet it is. Dives to the inside, makes the apex beautifully. A brilliant move. If he can get the exit, going to put a squeeze on Brady Myers. Lucky not to put himself into the pit exit wall on the outside there, which is so easy to do. But have a look, and I believe that's Mario Vlasic trying to have a bit of a go into this fight. But it's going to be side by side into turn number 1. Close quarters racing. Brady Myers, Wayne Burke into turn number 1 and 2. And it's going to be the inside for Wayne Burke. Job done, but it's even bigger issues for the driver of Brady Myers. Gets hit at the back, and now have a look at the CMR Craig Jones going up the inside. Will he be able to get the move done? Opportunity is there, opportunity taken, and that is a position gain for Craig Jones, and Brady Myers' day just gets that little bit worse.
Yeah, Brady Myers has just been biffed around a bit, and Wayne Burke, oh my goodness, so close to losing it as he came just out of the exit over the bridge there. That was very, very lucky for Wayne Burke that he didn't absolutely lose it there. We'll get a replay of that for you, and you can just see as he was coming over the bridge there, a massive sideways moment, having to correct as he comes off the exit of the bridge, and very crossed up as he comes out of the corner. So Wayne Burke now on the main straight, and maybe used a little bit of his tires up as he was trying to get past the driver of Brady Myers before. And we're now going to jump up to Brett Loxton, who's having a little bit of a look at Kurt Stenberg. Loxton, one of our drivers who's been putting in some really fantastic performances the last few races. Got a top 5 last time out at Bathurst, and we're just hearing as well. Yeah, we've just heard that something is amiss. Okay, so maybe a few internet issues with Dane Warren, so he's dropping in and out and in and out and in and out, so we'll keep an eye on that for you. But yeah, Brett Loxton has been doing a fantastic job this season, and just have to put in a little more effort to climb himself back up on Kurt Stenberg there. Yeah, absolutely. So we'll wait and see how that battle will unfold. Of course, Loxton has been so quick of late, and Stenberg, of course, is second in the championship, so no slouch at all. But we'll now turn our attention to Ross Rizzo, who continues to put in a great performance. It always seems to come out of nowhere. He wasn't particularly impressive, hope he doesn't mind me saying, in that first stint of the race. But as always, he comes out of nowhere and starts putting on a lot of pressure onto the drivers in front. Now finds himself hunting down P number 4, and he definitely has the pace advantage on the car in Harvey. Looking quite as comfortable as Scott yesterday. So maybe the setup not quite working as well in these track conditions for him to his liking. Nonetheless, Ross Rizzo putting a great performance, trying to hunt him down. And you can see that mid-corner apex speed so much quicker at the moment for Ross Rizzo, finding time lap after lap. And that was 2 last time around. Would not be surprised to see it a lot faster this time around. He's already onto the back gearbox of Luke Harvey, so any opportunity that comes his way, he's in a position to take it now. Yeah, Ross has been doing a fantastic job. He did have a very, very quick pit stop. He may have actually had almost the quickest pit stop of the entire grid, with the exception actually of Matt Morris and Brady Myers. So he used a bit of pit strategy. So that begs the question, does he have to save a little bit of fuel? And is he possibly just trying to get past Luke Harvey in the hopes that he can hold him up towards the end of the race? But you're absolutely right. Ross didn't really notice him much throughout that first in the race, but now sitting in a top 5 position and looking very strong on the back of the car of Luke Harvey there. And I think Dane Warren looking okay now with his internet connection. It has settled down a little bit, so still got Jake Burton right behind him. A little bit of help there from his teammate Thomas McMillan, and just holding up the TTR car of Burton as they came through the final corner there. We've just had a very large accident. Matt Morris, a very large impact into the bridge wall. That was all by himself. Lost it on exit of turn number 2. Just got into the dirt, lit the rear tires up, and found the inside wall so heavily. And that is big damage, and I would not be surprised to see that terminal. But at the moment, he's continuing on, and the pace doesn't look terrible. So whatever they're building in that Velocity sim racing car, it's pretty strong. Yeah, you got to give a bit of a bonus to the guy that welded up the front crash bar in that car, I got to say, because he doesn't seem to be too impeded by that contact. albeit, you know, the time that he lost from that initial spin. But Ross Rizzo is now really having quite a bit of a look at the back of Luke Harvey now, and he has been closing up ever so slightly. But you can see the way that Ross's car is reacting very, very quick through the mid-corner, and Luke Harvey just looking like he's got a little bit more exit and entry speed, but losing that mid-corner speed there. So Luke Harvey now putting down the power, as you can see, getting very, very nice traction as he comes out of turn number 12. Ross Rizzo, though, not too shabby himself and keeping right with the TTR driver, only separated by 0.2 at the moment. Luke Harvey really getting out nice and wide, late on the brakes there, as Ross just getting a little bit eager on the gas, letting the tail get out a little bit. You can see both of these guys pushing very heavily right now.
Yeah, we do have another battle happening on track, which is Thomas Hinz and Michael Taliantic. And Taliantic up the inside, of course, some very new tyres on Taliantic's cars. And you can see Hinzy having to defend for his life at this point. But Taliantic is going to try around the outside, which is so hard to do. So I'll be very impressed if he can pull this off. Might be better just trying to send Hinzy a little bit wide deep into this corner and get the crossover. Can't quite do it though, and Hinz will get the car in front, but great extra traction from those fresher tyres on Michael Taliantic's car. See what he can do now coming to this back half of the track. Of course, this is where a lot of the load on the tyres does come from, so Hinzy will be suffering a lot more than Taliantic will. So through this fast section now, and then through this massive crest at the dogleg, where the car just changed direction in the air pretty much, gets very light over the top, but Hinzy got a very nice setup on the All-Star Motorsports car. But look at Ross Rizzo, is getting very attacking into turn number 1, can't quite do it at the back bumper of Luke Harvey. And Harvey just holds on for one more lap, but unfortunately for him, he still has 10 more laps to do that.
Yeah, well, Luke Harvey's car doesn't seem to have the same straight line speed that Ross Rizzo does, irrespective of how their exits are. So it seems like Ross Rizzo's got that car set up a little more to be faster in a straight line to help him overtake down into turn 1 and 2, and that is pretty much your prime opportunity for overtaking here at Oran Park. The rest of the track, given that it's so technical and there are so many corners, it can be very difficult to see, although we have seen the likes of Brady Myers toughing it around the outside through some of those technical sections and making it work. We can see Ross Rizzo now going to try and get a nice exit out of 12, and this is where you start to see Ross Rizzo just starting to claw back a little bit of time on Luke Harvey there. You can see not quite enough this time round, but just edging ever closer. And the draft does make a little bit of a difference, but on such a short straight at this Oran Park circuit, it's not really enough to make a massively noticeable difference. So I think that he's just got the car set up a little bit more definitively for straight line speed there.
Yeah, that's very possible. So we'll wait and see how that battle unfolds. Just want to quickly mention that Jake Burden, very lucky to still be holding position number 2, had a massive moment into the corner he's coming into now. This double left-hander through the compression had a big slide on the last lap. Very lucky to hold it, but did end up losing an entire second to Dane Warren, our race leader. So Warren, a lot more breathing room now and might just be able to control it all the way to the checkered flag. So for Jake Burden, lucky to hold P number 2 for now, but the tyres will definitely be feeling it after that one. But we will turn our attention once again to Luke Harvey, and he's coming under pressure once again from Ross Rizzo. A nice square extra from Rizzo, but will it be enough? Still a big gap between the two. And Rizzo not quite making the inroads he needs just yet, unless he's going to get very bold into turn number 1. But Rizzo is a clean racer. He knows how to race hard, knows when opportunities are there, and there was not an opportunity into turn number 2. It looks like there won't be one at turn number 3 either, so Rizzo going to bide his time. And as you mentioned, Zach, a very quick pit stop for Rizzo. If he did underfuel quite a lot, we know how good he is at fuel saving in a V8 Supercar, in a GT3, whatever you like. This is his opportunity to maximize that, get the fuel burn he needs now, and have a very large crack in the final few laps.
Yeah, well, that's definitely the most optimal strategy to use, but will he have enough tyre left by the time he gets to that stage? He has been on the attack, you know, not right in there, but he has been poking at Luke Harvey and forcing him to try and take different lines. So using up a little more tyre than he would if he was just taking the optimal line and not poking around as much. And you can see just getting a little bit early on the power there and having a little bit of a slide as he came out of the 12th corner. That's not going to help his rear tires, and that's not going to help his chances of being able to make a move on Luke Harvey. But you can see very good on the brakes into corners 1 and 2, and I think that's where he's making up a lot of his time.
Yeah, I think so, of course. It's also potentially a little bit of difference in setups as well. So we'll wait and see how this battle unfolds and which car's looking after its tyres just a little bit better. But we will turn our attention just a little bit behind this battle, which is, of course, Kurt Stenberg, who does have Brett Loxton for company, and Corey Preston is involved as well. So a 3-horse train going up the hill now into the final few sections of corners. And this is going to be an interesting one. Corey Preston just falling off the back just a little bit, but he doesn't quite have the experience of the other cars in this battle pack around the track. Of course, wasn't able to compete in Scops, unfortunately for him. But for Brett Loxton and Kurt Stenberg, they were. So they know what it's like racing cars in these close conditions. As actually the 2 TTL cars there just changed positions. That was Cam Vance getting the move very easily done on Brady Myers. So there we go. Cam finds himself now to P number 17. So the 2 TTL teammates already working together, which is great to see. But for these battles that are still happening out on track, there's only 6 laps to go now. The tyres are really hurting, which could be benefiting someone like Michael Taliancic, whose tyres are getting very young, compared to Thomas Hinz. Of course, the Taliancic might alternate strategy where his tyres are now 4 laps younger than Thomas Hinz. So Hinz really got an uphill battle to hold on to this position. You can see through turns 1 and 2, Hinz just losing a little bit of ground there to Taliancic. Taliancic not quite close enough, going to push it very late on the brakes though. Test the limits and see just how far he can brake into the corner, so that if an opportunity does come, he knows where the limit is and he knows not to go any further.
Yeah, well, Thomas Hinz is a very experienced driver, very solid driver as well. Always has very good performances, and he's doing a very good job at the moment of holding off Michael Taliancic. But as you said, the deficit in tyre is very noticeable, especially as you come through that turn number 9 there, and Michael Taliancic just able to have a lot more turn and get on that power a little earlier, and we'll see again through here just a little bit better through the mid corner, although Thomas Hinz did very nicely get on the power nice and early and carry the momentum through the exit of the corner, just gonna give him enough breathing space down the straight into turn number 1 to not have to worry, although Michael Taliancic looking very good under brakes, gonna poke his nose in there. He's gotten down the door, but he's got the outside line for the next corner, so he's gonna have to go very late if he wants to make anything work here. Thomas Hinz just locking up the inside tire there, and Michael Taliancic having to run a little wide as they come through turn number 3, and now going to go for a little bit of an over-under, but unfortunately just didn't have the room and possibly the traction to finish that one off. So Thomas Hinz living to die another day, but hopefully he doesn't die before the end of the race, because he's been doing a fantastic job of holding off Michael Taliancic so far.
Yeah, absolutely. He's had a fantastic fight at the moment, but another fight that is breaking out is Brenton Hobson, who is slowly coming under pressure from Scott Kozlowski as well. So Hobbo, who is running, on my screen at least, a very different livery to what he ran in Scops. Some brand new branding on that with the orange on the car, which looks pretty nice, I must say. But he does have an even more orange car just behind, which is the Rat Corp car of Scott Kozlowski, who has been on a run of form lately. He did extremely well in the Oceanic Endurance Series at Spa-Francorchamps, where he was so quick in that Audi, but unfortunately could not quite get it done in the end. But now he has a chance to try and get one up on the Synergy Sim Racing car of Brenton Hobson, but with just 3.5 laps to go, opportunities are running out, and if there is even half a chance, you really do have to make the move stick. So this is where the pressure is going to come for Scott Kozlowski, and he does have Thomas McMillan, who is a lap down just in front, but perhaps, just maybe, McMillan could be a bit of a decoy for the Synergy Sim Racing car, and just slow him up just a tiny little bit. Make sure he plays by the rules, obeys blue flags, but perhaps just try and pull Hobbo off just a little bit, which might open the door for Scott Kozlowski. But McMillan does the right thing and will get right out of the way of this fight, and they're going to allow Kozlowski and Hobbo to fight it out to turn number 1, and look at the run for Kozlowski. 3 laps on the clock and no opportunity to turn number 1 for Kozlowski, or is there? It's turn number 2, late on the brakes, but gets the nose cut off by Brenton Hobson.
Yeah, Hobbo doing a good job there to shut that move down fairly quickly, although Scott going to go down the inside at turn number 3 very late, and lucky Hobbo saw him coming there and left the door open a little bit so as to avoid contact, as Szlowski just had to ride a little bit of that inside curb there. So no touch, no harm, no foul. They'll continue on, and Scott will continue to apply pressure, and very, very close to the back of Honson's car, coming through turn number 7 there, and almost making contact. So he's definitely got some pace in this car right now, and just looking for the right opportunity for that door to open and for him to just send it on in there, but not this time down into turn number 12. Can he get the exit speed? Hobbo not getting an ideal exit. Got Szlowski running it out very wide, but unfortunately I just don't think he's quite got enough overspeed. And we're just going to go up to Ross Rizzo and Luke Harvey, because there has been big contact, and Luke Harvey has been turned around by Ross Rizzo. We'll get a Cup Price Racing replay of that for you. And just as they were coming in to turn number 1, Ross went down the inside, tried to fire it down into turn number 2. And I mean, yeah, there was enough room there. It just skipped along the inside of that curb a little bit, which shot his car wide. And unfortunately for Luke Harvey, that has cost him a position, and a position to his teammate, Kurt Stenberg. And Stenny now having a look at the car that sent his teammate off, and wondering if he can catch back up and maybe repay the favor.
Yeah, that is definitely an option, but we're turning onto the last lap now. So if he's going to get redemption, it has to be now. Stenberg a bit far back at the moment from Rizzo, so we'll wait and see what transpires on this last lap. Hobbo still having Szlowski kept underneath his rear wing, so we'll keep an eye on all these battles that are happening. Of course, this is the last lap opportunity.
Oh, Stenberg's gone off!
And Stenberg has gone off into the turn number 1. It's been a disaster, and any chance of redemption for Trans-Tasman Racing goes out the door. Ross Rizzo allowed to escape, and this has all gone off in the final lap. It is all happening, so everyone is giving it their all. It's the last lap, it's the last race of the season, and this is everyone playing for keeps. But we have to turn our attention now to the number 4 car. He's been playing for keeps all season. It hasn't been a championship defense for Dane Warren this season, but when he has raced, my word, has he been dominant. Dane Warren's going to round the final corner, and he is going to pick up round number 12 of the iRacing V8 Supercar official series. Crosses line P number 1, Jake Burton for P number 2. Sam Blacklock is going to come home in P number 3, and Rizzo with an aggressive move going to come home in P number 4. But we will also turn our attention down in position number 20.
He's going to redress. He's redressed to Harvey as they come across the line.
Rizzo redresses, but more importantly, will switch to 27th place on the grid. Car number 1, Marlin Mcmullen, crosses the finish line 5 laps down. Not what he wanted, but he did get what he wanted at the end of this season. It's a championship for the number 1 car, Marlin Mcmullen, your Season 2 2018 V8 Supercar Official Series champion.
And very well deserved. Marlin's been putting in massive efforts all throughout this season and throughout many seasons of the iRacing V8 Supercar Series, and very pleasant to see him take out a championship after putting in so much hard effort. As I'm sure many of you know out there how much effort it takes to win one of these championships, and Marlin has done everything he has needed to do and more to take home that one. So congratulations to Marlin J. Mcmullen, who is our 2018 Season 2 V8 Supercars iRacing champion.
We'll run our way through the results on what was a very entertaining race here at Oran Park, and Dane Warren is going to take P number 1 with Jake Burton and Sam Blacklock making it 2 Trans-Tasman Racing cars on the podium. Luke Harvey did get that 4th place back in the end, so Ross Rizzo being the gentleman in P number 5 and handing that back. Brett Loxton brings it home in P number 6 for the end of what was a fantastic season for him. Corey Preston P number 7. Kurt Stenberg almost had a great result happening, almost top 5, but the last lap, all it went away from him. Brenton Hobson in P number 9, which is an upside down 6, and Scott Szlowski, P number 10.
Thomas Hinz came home in position number 11. Michael Talianci, 19th in 12th. Wayne Burke moving back into 13th position from 10th. Mario Vlasic, one of the biggest movers of the day, from 23rd position up into 14th. Fantastic job there, Mario. As well, Craig Jones from 22nd up into 15th, so good job to Craig as well. Brian Borg battling all throughout that race, came home in 16th position, with Cameron Dance quietly moving up to 17th. David Kinman progressed up to 18th position. Greg Sharp moved up to 19th from 30th, and Steve Jansen rounded out the top 20. And then we have Brady Myers and Dominic Savicki in 21 and 22. They were the last of our cars on the lead lap. And then we had Matt Morris, Alejandro Martin, Jason Cossey 1 lap down, and then a few other cars that suffered a little bit more damage. Daniel Williams, Marlin Mcmullen, Ethan Warren suffering damage on the entry into the pit lane, and McMillan, Jordan Ross, Cooper Webster all having their own various issues as well, as Marlin doing some celebratory donuts out on the front straight, which is well deserved. And yeah, it was a fantastic little race. Not so much happened in the second half of that race, with the exception towards the very, very end there, but very, very spicy in that first stint.
Absolutely, there was a lot of hard racing, wasn't there? And drivers really knowing that when there was an opportunity to go for it, they absolutely had to go for it. And in the end, it was a fantastic race. It was a fantastic season in the end, with so many big moments, so many controversial moments, so many awesome races that came right down to the wire in a lot of cases. And we will be back for Season 3 next season. Of course, Belle Isle will be joining us on the calendar there. But there is more from us here at V8 Online, or should I say Autobots Online, apparently. Sorry for the audio technical difficulties here in this broadcast today, but on Wednesday night, we should get rid of all those difficulties because it is the finale. It is the Oceanic Sprint Championship. It's 1 hour, it's 2 pit stops. It's going to be a great finale, Zach, between Ross Rizzo and Anthony Winkleman.
Yeah, and I mean, those guys are teammates and 2 very talented, very quick drivers. So I think it's going to get a little bit personal, and I think it's going to be very entertaining for everybody to watch.
It definitely should be. And if you want entertaining, how about Saturday night? There's no other way I can say this. It's the Max Bands. And as a commentator, you have to say when it comes to Max Bands, it's going to be lit. And then on Sunday night, we return for the biggest championship we host here at V8 Online, the V8 Supercars Online Premier Series. It's 2 weeks in a row. It is going to be flat out for the teams, hard work, lots of preparation. And Zach, it's a very difficult circuit. It's Mosport.
Yeah, Mosport is one of those places where you need to keep up momentum at all times, and that really, really difficult horseshoe hairpin down at the bottom of the hill always catches people out and can always cause big carnage. A lot of places on that track where you can have big accidents, but the racing is always fast and it's always fun, and it's going to be very cool to watch.
It is going to be very cool to watch. But from us here at V8 Online, thank you so much for joining us this season. On behalf of myself and Zach, we will see you in 2 weeks' time for round number 1. Once again, Season 3 will be kicking off at the Motorsport Park in Canada. It's going to be great. We will see you next time.